Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Big Decisions for Anfield Index. No, you are not in a vortex. This is the right way around. It is me hosting tonight, Dave Davis, coming to you from the sun is still shining, although it's a bit of a trace description because it's freezing here in Edinburgh. And I am joined in, he doesn't like the reference, so he won't go Jamie Lee Curtis, we'll go a Lindsay Lohan style. Freaky Friday. My old mucker, Trev Downey. How are we, sir?
Yeah, good, man. I was saying to you just before the mics went live there, I have a chest infection. So if I sound a bit wheezy, you're going to have to forgive me, folks. And it is just completely psychotic here. It has lamped down rain. So again, you may hear that. I can't make any allowances for it because we're under a Velux window here as well. So just bear with me, guys, if there's a bit of atmos there in the background, including from my chest.
So, fingers crossed. If Trev passes out during this, I'll just make all the decisions. We'll go with that, ladies and gents. So, you know how we work on big decisions. 3 big topics, 3 big calls. There are no splinters in the arse allowed. We've got to make definitive decisions because, as Liverpool have to, for this season, contracts, matches, Christ, there's about 1,000,001 things to sort. And we'll actually get into the first topic, Trev, straight away. Contract conundrum, as we're calling it. Now, we'll separate Ibra a little bit from this, because that's probably smarter for our big topic. But for all the contracts Liverpool did and didn't get sorted during the summer, there's still a fair few coming up. Because just looking at this, people, I mean, we'll discount a few with the greatest of respect to Freddie Woodman, who may never play a single senior minute for Liverpool. But Robbo, a year left to go. I mean, we'll also separate the superstars a little bit. Endo, 2 years. Joe Gomez, 2 years. Curtis Jones, 2 years. Stefan Bajcetic, 2 years. I mean, we've got a fair few players to think about here, Trev. And if we are playing Richard Hughes, what do we do here? I mean, we'll start with the skipper. The vice captain. Jumped to promoted him then, didn't I? Andy Robertson. A nice story. A nice speech. Talked about literally the other day, Trev. You've probably seen it. You know, I made the decision. I had the option, but I wanted to stay. We committed to staying, was what he said. Is this one last hurrah? Or could there be potential maybe for more?
So my take on this, Dave, was that I saw that interview with Robbo and I found that it was possibly a little bit... I'm not saying he was being disingenuous, but I do think that there was an offer or two there that he was interested in. We certainly know that if the Atletico thing had worked out, that there was talk at the time that and I think that would have been good for him, for his ego at this stage of his career, for his life experience at this stage of his career and all the rest of it, and keep him in the place where he currently is, which is captaining Scotland. But it's going to become an issue for him if he's not getting a game, and it's fairly obvious that the new man is the preferred option. And if he turns out to be quite bulletproof, I think Robbo's time is kind of very, very much limited. It felt to me like the writing was on the wall a little bit. So here I am, Dave, and I'm thinking, was this like a borderline sentimental decision, the vice captaincy thing, to do the year, to let him be that guy for the year, and then we'll see how it goes, see how we've landed at the end of the year, see how useful he's been on the park and all the rest of it. And I think that's exactly where we are. I'd say there'll be a sort of revisiting of the whole thing in the summer. And Robbo may then at that stage, depending on the lack of minutes or depending on maybe he gets a meaningful contribution this season, he'll make a different decision then. I think the club have allowed him to actually make that decision, if you know what I mean. And I think there's evidence of almost Klopp-era sentimentality in him getting the vice captaincy over Mo Salah. It was a weird one to me. Not that Rob was a fantastic character and a real kind of leader in the dressing room and a real sort of loud voice. I can see why he would be perfect for the role, but it just seemed a bit odd to me that you wouldn't give it to someone who's going to be on the park a lot. because there's no guarantee, right, that if Virgil's taking a step out, that Robbo will be into the team at all. So it's going to be Mo anyway. So yeah, I find the whole thing a little bit weird, and I think he may well be part of what I suggested to you could be quite a bit bigger of a churn again next summer than people are expecting.
Do you know what? As you said, it actually reminded me. Do you remember? People forget this bit, but when Klopp did the bits on the stage for his very last game and he did the singing, everyone remembers that. What people forgot a little bit before was the presentations. Do you remember when Ox came out and he got the big placard with all the trophies, and then Joel Matip came out and he got the same, Thiago Alcantara? It does feel a little bit like you say, it could just be one of those at the end of the season, couldn't it? A nice presentation, tears and types of things, but dressed up, exactly as you said, with a little tinge of sentimentality. But that's maybe just the way football goes a little bit. And in terms of leadership, I adore this player. I really do, because even against Arsenal, he comes on for the last 15, gum shielding, ready to fight. And if he can't quite nick the legs of Victor Gyökeres going through, he jumps on his back and brings him down, takes the yellow card, hook or by crook. And it surprised a lot of people that Endo stayed this season. I think many thought, we had an inkling it could be moving on because he's not going to get minutes, he's not going to get regular football. He does seem, though, really happy with his lot, Trev, the way it stands at the moment. I mean, 2027, so we'll have a year left to go in the summer. The World Cup will have passed. We can't see Liverpool surely offer him a new deal, but will Endo want to do this for another year on top of this one?
I think these two guys could be very much of the same mind by the end of the season, but for slightly different reasons, because I don't see either of them getting enough time on the field for them to feel like they are contributing meaningfully. Now, I hope I'm wrong, actually, in both cases. I'll be honest with you, I do, because I'm very fond of both footballers. I'd love to see Robbo make a meaningful contribution this season coming. Similarly with Endo, I think everyone's very fond of that guy because of his attitude as much as anything else. And I get it with Endo. If you found yourself rocking up in a club like Liverpool, in the moment that we're in now, you'd probably just be counting your blessings and thinking, how did I get this lucky? And here I am picking up trophies and I'm on the pitch and, I'm a hero back home and it's wild. And why wouldn't he do that? But I think again, right, he's going to come to, Robbo's a bit older, right? But it's hard to see either of them wanting to be even less involved as they get a little bit older, because I'm telling you right now, I guarantee it, there's going to be meaningful arrivals over the next couple of windows. You tied that in with a story this morning on Newsround about Arne's contract and the little throwaway thing about how he was promised world-class footballers in the windows to come. That's not a small piece of information. That's quite a big piece of information. It's not like he's going to have to make do and mend, and so that you're going to keep throwing these veterans at it with diminishing returns. So I think both of the lads are going to be in a situation where they're going, I wouldn't mind playing now, because hopefully they'll be off the back of yet another big win or maybe two big pots. And I'm thinking they'll say to themselves, well, maybe now this is where I go to X or Y. Maybe Endo goes back to Germany. Maybe he goes closer to home. Maybe Robbo goes to Celtic or something. Yeah. Those two guys, I think, may well have similar thought process on what's left of their career at the end of this season. So for that reason, I think Endo equally will be eyeing up the exit door, not because of any other reason except that, well, I've done really well here and I still want to play for a bit. And I get that. That's what footballers want to do, Dave.
It is crazy when you think about it that way. But similar to you, it's just they will have decisions to make. But I actually think you're right. I think in the nicest possible sense, decisions will get made for them. And then, what follows will follow. This one is a strange statement, even in the modern era. In the summer, Trev, Joe Gomez, if he does the full season, is entitled to a testimonial. I don't think you ever say that in the modern football era, but that is factual. Joe Gomez is entitled to a testimonial. He has a deal till 2027, and everyone loves Gomez. Of course they do, the squad, the fans. But it's telling that Liverpool on deadline day were prepared to ship him out to AC Milan, who pulled the plug because they didn't have enough time for the medical. Brighton made a move for him as it came out. The deal just couldn't be done because of the wage coverage and, what was involved in all that. And obviously Mark Gay, which we'll come to, that put the kibosh on a lot of things. The fact Liverpool were willing to do that this summer, the testimonial year as well, Gomez sticking around, do you reckon, past this summer at all?
But this is even tougher to see. And hence, I'm going back to that word churn, because I'm kind of 3 for 3 here now in terms of lads I think will probably head for the exit door. And the reason I think Joe will is because you said it yourself there. Really, it was a really interesting way that you framed it, because AC Milan wanted to do their due diligence on Joe's dodgy knees. Yeah. But they were interested in Joe Gomez. And Brighton were interested in Joe Gomez, and we know there's several other Premier League clubs who'd be more than happy to have Joe Gomez on their books, and would take a punt on those dodgy knees. So, with that in mind, you can't listen. He came out the last day, and he was absolutely freaking immense. He was just a reminder of how good he is. Like, his stats in those few minutes were nuts, but it wasn't even just that, because sometimes those things can lie to you. It was the eye test of watching this guy striding around, a pure colossus in that period of time he was on the pitch. Look, if he can do that over several matches this season and contribute meaningfully to another title, maybe even a Champions League, I mean, that's the dream, and I would love that for him. It's funny, isn't it? The testimonial thing is such a sort of throwback to when you and I were nippers watching football, and lads kind of, they really wanted the testimonial because it was an earner for them, and they weren't on this absurd money that lads are on now, and they were thinking about, well, maybe I can get enough to buy that pub, and that's my retirement plan, that type of thing. Now these guys give the money predominantly to their charity or to their foundation or whatever. Yeah. It's more the point of the service that he's done. I think he'll see this as an opportunity for him to have another chapter. And a bit like Endo and a bit like Robbo, I'm sure he would want to actually have a bit of football in the tail end of his career. Yeah. And it will make it all so much easier for us, for them, if we're coming off the back of another big pot or two, because then they can go, hey, I'm walking away on a high here. And that is the dream. Not that we want to see any of those three guys going, because I love them all. But realistically speaking, you just said it. The club were happy to let Joe go. So why do we think it would be any different this summer, even if he does do well? Because it was never about his talent. So I'm 3 for 3 here, buddy. I think he's out the gap as well.
3 for 3 so far with 2 to go, and probably I think we build to the most difficult one, and the reason for that is Curtis Jones. 2 years left to go on his deal, and we always talk about 2 years of this golden period, like renewal, move on. You don't want to let it get to a year, and obviously what that could envisage, and we know what's happened with certain players. The thing with Curtis, Trev, is he will look at his midfield colleagues and think, I'm in that rotation. He will look and think, Florian Wirtz has come in on a pretty penny, as we know. There's no two ways about that. He will look and say, well, Szoboszlai and McAllister, they came in on tasty wages at the same time. Ryan Gravenberch, we know the deal he was on at Bayern Munich and how we tempted him across. So he will be looking for probably parity, won't he, across that midfield area, and thinking, well, you sold Harvey Elliott as well. You moved others down the rankings for me. I should be getting parity or somewhere around that metric. Do you think Liverpool will be willing to do that, though? Is this a tougher one than we're thinking?
Yeah, that's the really interesting one there, because you could see that might be where there'd be a bit of a disharmony between the club and the player, because if he doesn't feel like he's being respect whatever they offer him, and they, are hard nosed about these things. So I am nervous about that for Curtis. I do think there's a good chance Curtis ends up being a one club man, because nobody wants to think about this.
No.
Especially when we're talking about yet another player later on in our show here today, being sort of tapped up and eyed up by Real Madrid. But I think there could be a third one. And I would not be surprised if we saw McAllister do a stint in Spain. Yeah. And so, again, like I said, I think the churn will continue. And if we get a Wharton in and Mac goes, someone like Curtis, keeping him around, it's a no-brainer, because he can cover the 8, he can cover the 6. Yeah. He has tremendous talent. He can be a good out ball, just like a real technique merchant. So I think it makes absolute sense to keep him around. So then it just comes back to that original idea. Will they be able to come to some sort of solution financially that he's happy with and the club are happy with? And I think they will, because the homegrown aspect, the Swiss Army knife aspect of him in midfield, and even a little bit further forward. And hell, Jesus, if you had to, you could probably ask Curtis to play full back for you. Yeah. So I think he's one of those guys that will be happy to keep around, and I think he will likely be happy to be around if, and this is the big if, Dave, if the playing time is decent this season. And if he thinks, right, okay, well, maybe the likes of a Mac might leave, so even if we do get in at Wharton or the lad from Brighton, well, maybe I'll still have a space in this rotation. So he's the first one I think will stay around, David. Again, depending on that money, and hopefully that doesn't get too acrimonious.
Yeah, I think you're right as well. Whenever you have a title-winning squad, you'll always have your stars, but you always need that bracket just under the stars who play regular minutes, have a real impact, and he is right there. And if anyone doubts that, look at the Arsenal game on Sunday. Him coming on was a big part in why we won that change of the game as well. So he really does have a place in the squad. You're right. It can't become acrimonious. That is one for me as well. We need to get done. Simple as that. Which brings us on to a final one. And we've almost been going down the ages a bit Benjamin Button style, and we go right down here. A 20-year-old Trev, a 20-year-old who came from Celta Vigo, Stefan Bajcetic, who, go back 4 years ago, people had real high hopes for. And since then, it's just been injury after injury. The club have kept him around this summer, but it does sound that he's playing that Tyler Morton role, break glass in case of emergency, that if everything goes to plan, it's more they didn't get a deal, he maintains his value, all those types of things. But Stefan Bajcetic will only have 1 year left to go in the summer after Liverpool have invested so much time in his recovery, loans, all these bits. What are you seeing happening with young Badge?
So in the same way that I think the era change from Klopp to Slot has had a big impact in different areas of how we play on the pitch, and maybe the attitude to the squad and the squad shape and how we recruit and all those kind of things, the most obvious one is in terms of that loyalty to his boys thing that Klopp had.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, if Stefan had been fit for the summer, proper offer comes in, I don't think he's here.
Yeah.
You saw how we sold the likes of Tyler Morton, and I just think he'd have been gone as well for whatever few shekels we could pick up for him. And it's just possibly the only thing that's actually a saving grace for the guy is, and maybe for us as well, is that we'll want to build his value back up because he was so highly rated. But that drops away very quick when you're not on the park. It just does. And we've seen it happen. You could argue that, we could argue that we've seen some evidence of that quite recently. So for me, this is a massive season for him, that he needs to actually get on the pitch a little bit, and he needs to contribute in that way. So I'm hopeful for the kid. But at the end of the day, Dave, I can see him getting lost in the mix this season because Arne likes who Arne likes, and he has a tight squad that he likes to use. He's not a big rotation merchant. So I think Stefan's going to get very difficult to get those minutes to make that impression, to grow his value. So maybe another loan at Christmas or something when he gets his fitness back? I don't know, buddy, but I would not be optimistic for Bajcetic being around too much longer. It sounds like I want to push everyone out. I don't. I'm trying to be realistic about what you know. So for me, I think he's another one that if he can manage to build up a little bit of value via a loan, maybe for the second half of the season, I think the club will move him on without a moment's hesitation. I could be completely wrong.
It's so hard to predict, and I think at the end we're going to have to come back to squad impact and what might happen next summer, especially when we talk about certain players' contracts. But I think there we have it, people. I think you're realistically talking that it's likely to be Robbo's last year. Joe Gomez, probably similar, feels like he waltzes in to a new team. Endo, a lot of these, if Arne Slot is going to get these world-class talents, some may have to move on. That's just the nature of the game. Curtis Jones, we need a resolution from that. And yeah, as Trev says, Stefan Bajcetic, it's hard to see a future at Anfield. Who knows what will happen? We will come back to the squad element, but contract conundrum, the decision on that, people, Richard Hughes are going to be busy all summer again. Don't think he's getting it off after a big one. It's just gone. There is a big one coming up again. We will step back into that